This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
All right, Ira. The soap opera is over.
Crazy.
Right? I mean, this was, out of all the years happening in the middle of a game, is this like a new one for you, by the way?
You know what? It is, but Big O, I think this really goes to a real problem that the league has. If the games are supposed to matter and the main thing is supposed to be the main thing, then you can't have games around the trading deadline. This is a league that has given us a week off for the All-Star break. This is a week that takes breaks for in-season tournament and other things like that. Really? And I just think you have to be off the night before the deadline, the day of the deadline, and the day after, because you're not full rosters. The Golden State Warriors are not who they're going to be. The Heat are not who they're going to be. This league has a 48-hour reporting rule. Give them 48 hours to get it done.
Okay. One of the greatest night in Heat history was on a trade night.
Oh, sure. Oh, the day after. It's actually the day after the Rex Chapman game.
Rex Chapman, they barely had was it with Tony something or whatever? He was like the last guy to be the eighth man or something.
Yes,
or
the guy they got from the Suns, drawing a blank right now, but yes, yeah.
Right? That somebody had to get there in time, so they had a roster.
They had the required guys. They went out. Rex Chapman hit shots. They had traded for Tim Hardaway because I remember it was a back-to-back. We were in Philadelphia the night before, and they didn't know what they were going to do, but they had to put their team together. Really shows you why they should give it more time for this process, because it really is absolutely bananas. I mean, look at Golden State tonight. They lose to Utah. They don't know which way is up. They're just trying to find their way. The Heat found out at halftime, most of the players. Kevin Love revealed he found out from a fan sitting behind the bench and who went over the particulars with him. And here's the deal. Even after the game was over, some players weren't sure they still had a job because until the Heat can get rid of Kyle Anderson, they were afraid that he would have one player too many. It works out for now. They're fine and they can pull it off. So there still is more to be done. This trade is not done. That's why Eric Spoelstra couldn't talk about it. That's why even though we spoke to players, the players told us they shouldn't be talking about it. They were told not to. It's a very weird situation. You know, it's just in football, you have your trading deadline in the middle of a week. I think it's usually a Monday, and you have or Tuesday, you have the whole run up to the next schedule before you can get it done. In other sports, it happens relatively late, in the season, or with baseball, there's a gazillion games, missing one or two doesn't matter. It's kind of crazy. And it's also something you really want to pause and think about the players and how they fit in. And instead, I got guys running back and forth in front of me all night. And still was a pretty entertaining game if I got to watch any of it.
Yeah, no, I get it. It was they were a little too loosey-goosey with the basketball there.
As they've been the last two nights now, exactly.
Yeah, I got to take care of the basketball a little bit better. We'll get to that stuff. That's the silliness right now. But, I mean, overall, I get it. It's kind of crazy. And I think what adds to it, see, the opposite thing of that Rex Chapman thing, and I was a beat guy in those days, and that was such a fun night because we were in the middle of watching them turn this franchise into a winner because Riley had just gotten here and all that kind of stuff. And he's kind of like, doing his magic early on in his early days. So it was kind of fun. Here, you've been through hell now. The team has been through hell. Eric Spoelstra, that poor man, has been through hell. And then you throw this hecticness on top of all of this. I think it's kind of all the layers all into one. You know what I'm saying?
There were a lot of smiles in that locker room.
Right.
There were a lot of players who for 6 weeks have said the absolute right things because, to use the Yiddish word, they were a bunch of mensches. They were a bunch of men. And they understood that you don't badmouth anyone ever, even if someone had maybe badmouthed you along the way, had said you weren't good enough, had said you weren't the teammates that he wanted. And I told some of the guys privately, I said, I really respect what you did. My job as a reporter is to try to bring out the truth. I didn't always feel I was bringing out the truth when you were saying the gratuitous things you said, but I respect you for the way you handled it and treated your fellow players and kept it in the locker room. But these guys, there was I'm glad they're staying over tonight in Philly, and they're going to take a bus up tomorrow to New York for the Brooklyn game. I don't want to say they're celebrating because that sounds really cold, doesn't it, Big O?
No. That sounds no. I understand their celebration because it's a burden. It's tough enough to play in a goddamn NBA season. You're playing at the highest level with the most talented people in the world. You've got a coach that wants the best out of you, and then you've got this whole distraction.
Independent contractor. That's what I called him. In a team sport, he was an independent contractor. That can work in some places. Hey, it worked with Michael Jordan Incorporated with his gambling and everything else that he did. I totally get all that. So certain players can get away with that because they're Michael Jordan.
Yeah,
But
or carrying the franchise. I mean,
right. He's Jimmy Butler. He's a very nice player, probably going to get into the Hall of Fame based on his credentials, but he's not going to be a top 10 all time, a top 15, a top 20, top 25. Maybe probably not even top 50 all time, to be honest with you. Top 75, one of those guys. But he's a very nice player. And here's the deal, Big O. We do have to pause and step back for one reason. He made this franchise matter for all 5 years he was here. He made the Miami Heat at their low ebb after Dwayne was driven away and came back. After LeBron left, after Chris Bosh got sick, he provided something. Someone emailed me today and said, you know what? I never enjoyed Jimmy Butler. His style wasn't fun. And I said, that's BS. Because you know what's fun? What's fun is 2 NBA finals and 3 Eastern Conference finals and having the deep playoff runs. That's your fun. So let's not bastardize the situation.
No, he has a great run, and he had plenty of swag that came with it because a lot of defensive plays that came with it and clutch baskets and going to the hoop and going tough. When he wanted to play, it's fun. What's not fun is watching the 2.5 years of you refusing to give your effort in the regular season. That's the part that's not fun. And that's the part that's ended now. And on top of all of that, like you were just talking to the players and saying how they were professional and you got to ask them the questions, but you have to ask them the questions. But the worst part is they have to deal with these stupid questions when they have nothing to do with this shit. This is their mess. They didn't create it. They're not doing nothing. They're being professional, and they got to answer all these damn questions for a guy that's creating all the problems. So to them, these questions are useless because it has nothing to do with what they have to do on the court, the player they have to defend tonight, the player they have to prepare for the next day, the team they have to prepare for. None of this has to do with Jimmy Butler because
I totally agree. And you know what this comes down to? The phrase you and I hear all the time. We use it all the time in our accurate Pembroke Pines report. This whole team stresses one thing, to keep the main thing the main thing.
Right.
For the last 6 weeks at least, and probably longer, the main thing couldn't be the main thing. And Eric Spoelstra and the PR staff and everyone could try to get you to move off of that. In the last 6 weeks, Tim Donovan, the very good PR guy for the Miami Heat, would walk in the interview room and he'd say, guys, we are not taking any questions on Jimmy Butler's suspension. Based on our lawyer's comments, we can't. It's an ongoing process. So they brought it out every game because they told you what you couldn't talk about. So it was there. And it literally was the elephant in the room. And now the elephant is heading cross country. And you know what? I'll guarantee you this, and we can reflect back on this. I don't know how much the Heat's going to win this season. I don't know how deep the Heat are going to go in the playoffs. But you know what? I think they're going to be fun. And I think it's going to be fun to watch the Jovic's grow, to watch the Kel'el Ware block shots he shouldn't, to wind up like tonight with 7 rebounds in the first 4 minutes, to see Bam Adebayo grow into that leader. What a mature guy he is. And to watch Tyler, boy wonder hero, absolutely flourish when the ball is in his hands and he can play as leading man. And tonight was a perfect example. Crappy performance in San Antonio. Crappy performance in Chicago. But what do the great ones do, Big O? They keep shooting. They persevere. They find a breakthrough. We saw that tonight. Because without Tyler Hero, there would be no W against the Sixers here in Philly.
Right. No, I'm with you. All right. So with everybody watching and going to be watching later and downloading, break down the trade, we all know, let's all be realistic. They couldn't ever max this trade out because he killed everything. So they didn't really have options. And hell, he's there now because the Warriors were dumb enough to give him that extension. So
and it's funny. It's funny. It wasn't about the money until as soon as he went there, it's about the money. And there's the money. And there's the key. And it was always about the money. And it was never about Eric Spoelstra didn't use him. And it was never about that they didn't surround him with quality players like he was promised by Pat Riley. It's always about the money. And you know what? I have no issue with that. If you want it to be about the money, just say it's about the money. He got the money that Pat Riley wasn't going to give. not only that Pat Riley wasn't going to give, but that Orlando Alzugaray wasn't going to give. So it's just easier for everyone because you had spoken about that. I think the only disappointment is, and this is sort of a Heat thing over the years, expectations rise for something else. And what were we talking about during the day today on Wednesday? Kevin Durant, Kevin Durant, Kevin Durant. Well, when you think you're getting Kevin Durant, you could shake your head. It was real.
But why do we do this? Why do we do this? You had no shot at him. That's unreal.
No, you had no, Big O. You had a 5% shot. You had an 8% shot, just like you did when you left OKC, just like he did when you left Golden State. But at least you got your foot in the door, and at least you looked into it. So here's the deal, Big O. Would the Heat not have been better off at least looking into it? No, you do your due diligence. That's all they did. That's all Windhorst and Shams and everyone heard. The Miami Heat are doing their due diligence. And God bless them if they didn't. So what did they get? They got a first-round pick. I'd rather it's not this year. I'd rather it was down the road so you can package picks. But you know what? There's a really good draft coming up. So there is that. And few people have hit on the draft as well consecutively as the Heat have the last 3 years with Jovic and Hawkins and Ware. So that's encouraging. Andrew Wiggins will show up and play every night. Andrew Wiggins will play winning basketball, and here's the deal. And I wrote about this in the story.
By the way, for a soft team, he'll add a little toughness because they.
And also, I wrote about it today. Yeah,
needs a little toughness. These youngins need to.
I agree.
Grow up a little bit, you know.
And I wrote about it that when you even look at tonight's victory over the 76ers, Duncan Robinson didn't make a shot. Haywood Highsmith scored 3 points. So you have 2 starters, God bless them, who are easily replaced. So you can have him. It's not a matter of, how do we redo the lineup now? Well, you play him however much you want. The Heat needed someone, and that's the deal. The Heat got better simply because Jimmy wasn't there, and Andrew Wiggins will be here. The irony, of course, that he was traded for Kevin Love at the very start of his career when the Cavs got that number 1 overall pick. There was so much going on here. So it's fascinating. So look, they got something for nothing because Jimmy had become nothing. And one more point, Big O, and you mentioned this on our Accurate Pembroke Pines report, no longer is that option year of Jimmy Butler hanging over the Heat's head.
That's why they had to make this trade. That's why they had to make. They had to end
about it.
Well, because
folks, when you listen to us during the mornings on Mondays and Tuesdays during the week, we've talked about it for weeks on our Accurate Pembroke Pines report that was the problem. That if the clock struck midnight at 3 p.m. tomorrow and Jimmy was still here, well, look, for a guy who's turned every screw he could so far, you knew he was going to turn that screw also and go, $52 million. Now what are you going to do, Mickey Harrison? So the Heat got their way out of Dodge. They needed to. So you know what? Did the Heat get the best player in the deal? No. Did the Heat get the best draft capital they could have? No. But the Heat moved off of a problem. They created flexibility. And I still have faith in Andy Ellisberg and Pat Riley and Adam Simon that they know how to deal with flexibility and get better. So it was a good night for the Heat squared. They got rid of Jimmy. They got a W. They're back over 500. They're in 6th place. Sort of who they are.
Okay, and explain the first round situation because
it's going to happen this year. It's top
10 in the playoffs.
It's top 10 protected this year. So Golden State most likely will wind up outside of the top 10 because when you get Jimmy Butler, you're playing for the playoffs. Yes. And I understand what Golden State did is they said we can't waste a year of Steph Curry's career. We can't tell him like they did at times with Dwayne Wade. Wait another year. We're going to build. We're going to be better. That's what Jimmy was worried about. So the Warriors are going to go for it. So basically, if there are 10 worst teams in the league, which there should be, the pick will be out of the top 10. So the Heat will probably wind up getting maybe a 13 or a 14 this year. Remember, folks, they got Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero with 13 and 14s. This is a very good draft. Plus, you have this. Let's say the Golden State pick is 15. Let's say the Heat's pick is 18. All of a sudden, you know the math. You've done the NFL draft also. It's only the math where 15 and 18 can equal 7. You know, we have to teach our kids about that. So it's more flexibility. It's another prospect. And here's the other part. If it's a quality prospect, then all of a sudden, you can put the package, quote unquote, the package together down the road. You're going to have Kalel. You're going to have Nico. You're going to have Hawkins. You're going to have this year's first-round pick. You're going to have attractive young players if the right whale comes along. Not the Jimmy whale, not the Durant whale, but the player you say, hey, this guy with Adebayo and Hero. So, yes, they're pushing the rock a little bit down the road, and that's fine because that's where they are right now. But it's not a bad deal. Is it a great deal? No. Does it knock your socks off? No. It is a get out of Dodge deal. That's what it is.
That's what it was. You had to do this deal, and that's why I love that they did the deal and they finally. And even they can draft, so maybe with that first rounder you do something with it, and then it really becomes a real sweetener on the deal. If you can make that first rounder pay off, then you really got something really nice out of the deal. Now, 87-year-old PJ Tucker, will he even play? I know he's out at the end of the year.
You know what? If they can move the contract by tomorrow, they're going to try to move the Anderson to the Tucker contract. I don't think anyone will take it. I don't think they have the sweeteners, but they might. And that's why when I was in the locker room and like everyone was celebrating, I'm like, well, but what if they take Pelle Larsson and his big shot tonight and they take PJ Tucker and someone takes on the money because they want a kid? I know it's a kid you like also. So we're not done here. We might have to have another emergency.
Why don't you take those two sweeteners and, somebody desperately needs a shooter and, my idea, you do trade Tyler and you get 2 or 3 first round.
I don't think we're there. I think it's more you might trade Duncan. I thought when you talked about a shooter, but hey, it's the first step. And you know what? It's easier to do a lot of this in the offseason.
I know you can a Tyler one in the offseason, but I'm just wondering if there's a market. I worry about it.
You know what, Big O? I saw enough of the game today, and I watched Tyler Hero, and he outdueled mostly Tyrese Maxey. And if he can play at a Tyrese Maxey level, that's a pretty damn good player.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. So you think even Duncan could be in play tomorrow?
I just think now it's about getting below the tax, getting that money back, getting flexibility. Hey, it's a business, so it's going to be a business also, and they have to take care of that. So, hey, it's still 3:00 tomorrow. The Heat showed they could be active. They have a lot of pieces they can put into play. I think there could be one more, I would call it market correction move, not a blockbuster, but just a little thing to get things in order. Yeah.
And why should they check you out leading up to the deadline at the South Florida Sun Sentinel and at Ira Heatbeat on Twitter?
Because for everyone who watched the Heat postgame show and transcribed the quotes and sent them out, there were people who had to be here on the ground. And Big O, you talk about this all the time, about support your local papers. Because if I wasn't there and Barry Jackson wasn't there from the Miami Herald, no one's going to go against the Heat orders and ask the players about the trade. Jason Jackson, God bless him, can't do that. He's paid by the team. That's why you support your local journalists. Because instead of sitting at home on TV and saying, oh, this person said that, it's who got the people to say that. And that means being out here with the frozen rain coming back right now, with the Uber driver telling me, which I don't think is legal, this is true, cash only. That doesn't sound right, because I had to rush back and do the accurate Pembroke Pines report. That's why you support your local journalism, because your local journalists are out there getting the stuff you need, even if other people are going to be copying it elsewhere.
And I'm proud to say that we're about to complete 5 years on this platform. No platform or radio station locally has supported their local journalists and has had more insiders paid on this platform than anyone else, by the way, in the last 5 years. So proud to say that too. Ira, have a fantastic night, my friend. We will catch up next week.
But first, a fantastic beer. Good night, guys.
You got it.
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.